So, welcome to Happy Showcase Friday. Every Friday, we take an individual and we ask them 5 questions that basically gets a better understanding of each of our top 5 strengths. So, today, our guest is Jim Collison. He works for Gallup, and he actually is the one who started the webcast Call to Coach. And we just found it very intriguing. The ladies of Recreate just absolutely love Jim, and he has been amazing at helping us with our business. So we just wanted to showcase him today. So welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me on. It's always good to chat with you.
You too, you too. So let's jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe background first?
Yeah, so actually, before I came to Gallup, I spent some time in the military. I also spent some time in retail banking, so I was a teller and a loan officer as well. I've done some time as an IT guy, so I wrote code, I did programming, and now for Gallup, and I'm an IT manager. So I've had a variety of experiences over the last 20 years. We've lived here in Nebraska for 22 years, and originally before that, I was a Bay Area kid, so I kind of grew up in California, not too far from you.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually in Omaha last September and it was beautiful out there. So I like the Midwest quite a bit, quite a bit.
It's spring and fall are great. Summer and winter can be can be a little rough, but it builds character, is what we say.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you again for today. We're really appreciative of it. And so tell us, what's your top 5?
Yeah, super easy. I say them every day because I work for Gallup, right? That's part of the responsibility is to know them. So, arranger, woo, maximizer, communication, activator.
Oh, makes so much sense. And tell us a little bit about how you see this playing out in your life.
Yeah, so really, when we think about what I do here at Gallup, and that's probably the easiest way to talk about this, because starting at Gallup 7 years ago, I've really spent a lot of time kind of honing that, taking what I'm really good at and getting better at it. And so I have 3 roles here at Gallup. One is as a manager, and one as a recruiter. I do college campus recruiting. We've also built a high school and college internship program here around technology, so I'm responsible for those. And then I'm also responsible as a webcast producer. So you mentioned Call to Coach. We get an opportunity to weekly now with Call to Coach Theme Thursday, and we have a new one called The Great Manager. We get an opportunity every single week to do this kind of format. And so for me, you really see woo and communication come out strong. That's why it's no shock to you, right, when I said woo communication, right? Always trying to be on the front of things. Those people say, I probably do 3 or 4 podcasts or webcasts a week now, between what I do with Gallup and some of the stuff that I do as a hobby. And I've just found that really works for me. I rarely get tired of doing this. I really enjoy kind of being on, talking to people. Many of the webcasts that we do have a chat room associated with them, and so I'm doing multiple things at once. I'm in there, so my arranger is working because I have to put, especially as we produce the podcasts here, or the webcasts, I've got to put a lot of technology components together. We're having all these things working together all at the same time, and so it is really a nice. And I'll talk why here in a second. We'll talk about Maximizer. That's the kind of the one that doesn't necessarily fit right now, but it does in a way, and we'll cover that here in a question later. But really, all of those pieces fit with what I'm doing.
That's awesome. And what would you say your favorite is?
Yeah, I can't pick one because woo and communication go together.
Thank you.
So you really can't. For me, it's hard to separate those two. And so when I think about, of course, webcasting, it's easy, right? That's all woo communication, what we do. But I get an opportunity to go on the road and recruit a college campus recruiting. And so in that recruiting, I get these opportunities to do info sessions, or I get an opportunity to stand at a booth and college students come by and ask about Gallup and what are careers like at Gallup, and what would I do if I was employed there. And so I get that opportunity to win them all. That is a winning opportunity. You're trying to convince them to be a part of our family and staff here at Gallup. And so, yeah, those two, I play that a lot. Communication, I love to talk. I'm not going to lie. That's one of those things. I love to be up in front of people. In fact, I'm weird in the sense that the more people I'm talking to, the more comfortable I am. So when I'm in smaller...
What's your biggest audience?
Say that again?
What's your biggest audience so far?
Oh, well, virtually, probably 500 or 600
Yeah.
from that standpoint. Probably in person, it's in the hundreds at that point. But for me, so I just get more comfortable the more people that are there. If it was a big audience, a big arena, I would not. I mean, I'd still be nervous, but not as much as I am around 5 or 6 people that I really know.
Mm,
And so that is just one of those things. That's kind of how communication plays out to me. I got to admit, though, coming in a close second is a ranger in that. And I love to plan events. I love anytime someone says, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this conference," or "We'd really like to think about doing a National Strengths Day," or "We'd really like to start meetups." I want to be in the middle of that, and
I love that.
and a ranger plays into that. So that's one of those areas that for me it's a close second.
I love it. I love it. And what's the one that gets in your way quite often?
Yeah, so going back to what I'd said there before, Maximizer is one I really, really struggle with. And of course, Maximizer is about making things better. And internally, that one beats me up quite a bit because I focus that on the inside.
Mhm.
I always focus it towards me. I could do things better. I could have done that better. I could have handled that situation better. I could have said this better, those kinds of things. And so I've really got to keep, because I'm out in the public eye a lot, because I'm doing those things, I'm moving, I'm activating, I'm arranging all the time. I
Yeah.
get lots of opportunities to self-criticize.
Mhm.
And so Maximizer for me, it's a tough one. It's number 3. It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
So I continue to focus on, like, how do I turn that into a positive thing for me? How do I take it from beating myself up on the inside? And
Right.
what's ironic is we've done a lot of these webcasts, and I've talked to maximizers. There are other maximizers who struggle with this. I've said, "Do you beat yourself up a lot on the inside?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Yes, I'm always doing that." And so that's one of those things. Sometimes strengths get painted as this Pollyannish, everything's happy type deal.
Right.
That's a situation I still need to learn how. I have the talent, but I need to kind of continue to grow it and groom it and tune it
Yeah.
to benefit me, not necessarily hinder me.
Well, my question would be, where does your responsibility fall? Is it in your top 10, top 12?
No, it's in. Although if you talk to Kurt Lietzfeld, he would say all the rest of the strengths are in my top 10. But no, responsibility falls down. If you listen to Theme Thursday, we have a running joke on Themes Thursday, and he'll always ask me, "Where's that at?" I'm like, "I think it's somewhere in my top 10." And
Yeah.
he's caught on to the fact that I say everything's in my top 10. No, it's for me. Responsibility is middle, and yeah, middle. So. No, in fact, this is areas where groups of people that I work with or teams that I'm on, I have to be very, very forthcoming and say, I need to find somebody with responsibility or discipline. Discipline's number 34 for me.
Wow.
I have to find people with that and say, you're gonna have to help me,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna go all over the, focus is way low too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go all over the place. You got to help rein me in. So that's helpful to know that though.
Yeah. Well, and I think the thing is, when I think about what you were saying about maximizer and the self-critiquing, that sounds a lot. I'm high responsibility, and that sounds very similar. So that's why I was wondering where it was in your
Yeah.
30.
And I think both strengths could play out in that way,
Yeah.
in that sense, with the responsibility and maximizer. I think the difference is just if you have high responsibility, you do get it done. If you don't get it done. You can still feel guilty, right, about not getting it done. But in my case, I feel guilty whether I got it done or I didn't, and I'm beating myself up because I think I could have done it better.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. So tell me, well, first of all, when's the first time you took StrengthsFinders, and have you taken it multiple times? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that gets discussed over and over and over again in our Call to Coach Facebook group. So I first took it, and I'm always trying to remember when that moment was. I was with another organization. It had to be 7 or 8 years ago. It had to be StrengthsFinder 1.0 in those years. And so I took it, and it really radically changed my life when I took it, because all of a sudden I realized, oh man, I've got some things I'm good at, and I need to focus on what those are and not worry so much about the things I'm not good at. And I remember taking that book home and saying to my wife, we need to parent our kids this way. We'd been struggling as parents, and I'm like, we should find what's right in our kids and start parenting. And that would have been That would have been like 2000, I think. No, maybe a little later, 2003, somewhere in there, in 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And so we completely changed the way we parented, and so it had this amazing effect on us and our kids, and it's paid huge dividends on them, by the way. They've
Yeah.
all done very, very well. But so I took it again. The strengths I just said now, I actually took 7 years ago when I started to Gallup. So I took that again then. Now recently we built an Android app, so you can take. I was part of the beta test team for that, and you can take the assessment on your phone in the app. Now you can buy it, take it right there. So I was testing and I took it again, and so I've had it 3 times. The third time things moved around a little bit, right? They kind of based on what I'm doing today, and I think because I've tuned my strengths, over the last 7 years of thinking about them every single day. I mean, here at Gallup, we don't just say you should do it and then not do it. We live it here. Yeah, we live it crazy here, is what we do. And so, because it's an assessment that how you answer it, it's not voodoo magic, right? It's how you answer the questions matter what the results on. And if I take it 2 times and I answer completely different both times, I'm going to get different results, right? That's kind of a misunderstanding a lot of folks have about StrengthsFinder. So, they moved around a little bit, although the top 10 stayed really consistent.
Yeah.
The question was, am I going to change? No, I'm way comfortable in the strengths that were assessed 7 years ago. And the importance isn't necessarily what they are or where they ranked. It's what you do with them, right? It's how you aim them. Yeah. And so this is why the joke comes in a lot from Kurt Liesfeld about, everything's in my top 10, because there's things that aren't necessarily there's strengths I need to pull up from lower at times. As a manager, I need to be responsible. So I've got to pull that one up, and I got to put systems in place to make sure that I'm exercising that. So this is one of those common misconceptions. It's not what it is. I mean, that matters because you got to name it, right? But you really got to claim it and then aim it.
I love that.
Yeah. So for me, that's super important. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I tell our clients all the time that you can know yourself, you can identify, you can discover it, you could say, wow, this is me, you can see how it plays out, but unless you put action behind it, it's just self-awareness, right? And it doesn't help you unless there's action. So I love that. And that's why we love doing the Showcase Fridays, because our clients, our friends, and our family who've come on to share their stories, they've come from different industries, different ages, and they've said, strengths made such an impact in my life that it changed the way I worked. It changed the way I communicated. And what Jen and I say all the time is, this is a grace tool. When you were talking about parenting and understanding how do you parent your kids through these lenses, it's such a grace tool to go, okay, this is why they act the way they do. This is why we parent the way we do. And it allows you to give a little grace in knowing that's just Jim, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. You're right on there, yeah.
So last question. How has knowing, you've done this for so long, you are an expert. You would not consider yourself an expert, but we would consider you an expert. How has knowing your top 5 allowed you to live a more authentic life?
Yeah, an interesting story just from this week. My daughter took the Myers-Briggs like last weekend, and she kept talking about it, right? She's 16, and we've been kind of holding off having her take StrengthsFinder just because I wanted her to get a little bit older to take that, but she kept talking about it. And so I brought a code. I bought a book and brought it home. Like, oh, you're taking StrengthsFinder today. I want you to know. And it was interesting. Her and I had that conversation just last night. So for her, she kind of rolled through her top 5 for me, and we started talking about this, how that fit her and what she saw in those results. And of course, it was spot on. I mean, it really nailed her, and she was. But the authenticness in it, and the power of the framework, right? In other words, her and I could have a very clear and concise conversation with a vocabulary that makes sense, that made sense to her, and instantly make a connection, right? Having a conversation we never had before, or I hadn't had with her before in that way. But it allowed me as a parent to kind of just get that next level of understanding with her. And it's like, oh, okay, some of these things, okay, this makes sense. And now that I know input is very high for her, and we kind of saw that coming with it, but it validated input was number one. And okay, so now as a parent, I have some ideas. You're kind of like, okay, along those lines. So, that's one example. I'll give you one more if I've got just a minute here.
Yeah, absolutely.
To do that. And so here at Gallup, we spend a lot of time managing. I'm a manager, but I'm managed as well. And my managers over the years, we call it tuning the radio dials. You think about the old, and this may not, if you're over or if you're over 30, you know what I'm talking about. If you're under, you probably don't. But the old radios had a dial on it, and you would tune in to the radio station, right? And so we spend a lot of time tuning people. And so that is a matter. When I started here at Gallup 7 years ago, I was a manager for our Oracle applications team. And it was a good fit. But as they began to realize, some woo in communication, maybe we should get him out speaking to recruits, doing the recruiting stuff. And for years I begged him. I've been a podcaster for about 5 years, and for years I begged him. I said, if we ever do a podcast of any kind, I want in on this, right? I want you to I want to do this. And the opportunity came up last year to get that done, and they gave me, permission. They're like, good, and go and do this. And so it's here we spend that time tuning and empowering one another, right? It's not just important that you know your strengths, but that your team does. The exponential power of strengths is really built out in the team concept. So as my manager knows what I'm good at, she's able to make decisions. She's able to put me in situations where I can be successful. So that's really the story of strengths when we talk about this. It's like you said, it's great we take it. It's great that you know it, but self-awareness isn't enough. And even you applying them is part of the step. The real power is letting people around you know, and having that team framework to be able to, continue to tune the radio dial, so to speak.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Jen and I had a client this summer. We were out in Atlanta, and we went 6 months ago, like 6 months previous, we did kind of round one with them, and this was our round two. And it was amazing. There was an executive group. Probably the team was 15, and they sat around this table. There was 100 people in this room, and each table probably had 10. But the executive group, they realized they had known their strengths for 6 months because we went over that in round one. But with round two, what was the big aha moment was they were all executors and relationship builders, all of them, and they had no strategic. And it was the aha moment of going, this is why we're so reactive to situations and not being proactive, because we don't even see it coming, because we don't even look. And that's really, that was really the power for them. They left, round two saying, okay, Sarah, what else can we do now to start figuring out how do we become more proactive versus reactive? And I love when you see that, when you go in, whether it's an individual that you're coaching or a small group that you're doing a workshop or a huge, 100-person, training day. It's amazing to see people have those aha moments and go, this is why, right? So we love that, and I think that's why Jen and I just absolutely love strengths, because it made such an impact in our lives. For me, it was that moment that was like, this is why I feel stuck right now. This is why I'm not living at my best, and it made such an impact for me, and the same for her. She was in graduate school, and we can talk about that later, but it's the same thing. It's like it was just this intersection of aha, that you said, okay, things will never be the same now that I know what I know. So
no, rightly so. Even down to, I'm here doing this today with you because Gallup tuned my strengths in a way that allowed me to do webcasting, and that webcasting led to this. So it's some of those things, the genesis of all that all came from an understanding of strengths. Yeah,
it's great. Well, thank you again for our first live webcast for Showcase Friday, and you're really living in your strengths, and we just appreciate your time.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Bye.